So we're going to talk about different kinds of cells next, and I wanted to talk first about the three domains of life, because the three domains of life have different kinds of cells. Now, if you remember the old system, the kingdom, phylum, that sort of thing, the domains are even bigger than kingdoms. They're the biggest bins that you can put animals in. And there are three different classifications. There's the bacteria, which are little one-celled critters. This is an example. Then there's archaea, which look about like that. And then there's eukarya. Eukarya is everything from little one-celled organisms that are like paramecia, like we saw in an earlier picture, all the way to cats and to humans. So that's a big bin. Now, the bacteria and the archaea are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes mean before the nucleus. So these guys do not have a nucleus. Instead, the DNA is kind of put in a region called the nucleoid. It's just sort of an area. So it's like if you have a kid with a very messy room, they have an area where their clothes are stored, but it's not really just the closet. And inside the cell there are ribosomes that are going around here loose, and those work to make protein. There's a rigid cell wall that goes outside of the plasma membrane. So the plasma membrane, the two-layer thing that we saw, is on the inside, and then there's a cell wall outside of it. The archaea have a cell wall made of proteins. The bacteria have a cell wall made of the fun-to-pronounce peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan. Let's say that 5 times fast. Peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan. Very fun word. So this peptidoglycan is a mixture of peptides, which are proteins, and polysaccharides, which are sugars, which make it nice and goopy. And then on the very outside there is the capsule, which is sticky polysaccharides, sticky sugars. The bacteria secrete these so that they can stick onto things. Bacteria may also have a flagella. It's rotated like a propeller to help move the cell. And some of them also have these things called pili. They're protein filaments. They're these hairy things here. These help the bacteria stick to things. And in some cases, it helps them have sex. We'll talk about bacteria sex in, I think it's 102. Here is a blown up version of this if you want to take a closer look at it. And now a little aside about biofilms, because biofilms are neat. And this is one place, if you see this on the surface of a lake, this is mainly going to be your prokaryotes. These are bacterial cells that live together in a shared mass of slime called a biofilm. The slime is made of glycoproteins, so that's a mixture of sugar and proteins, and polysaccharides are sugars. The biofilms usually include 2 or more species, including bacteria, algae, fungi, protists, and archaeans. So they're these fascinating little microsystems on the top of the pond. And the creatures in the biofilm benefit from each other. They live together cooperatively. The biofilm will separate into distinct neighborhoods, like this one that kind of looks like a flower. There's one region of one bacteria, one region of another. And if the conditions get bad, like somebody decides to clean the swimming pool, the biofilm creatures can break up and go solo again, looking for another pond to inhabit. Okay. Next, we're going on to eukaryotic cells. These are cells that have a nucleus. So these nuclei, which is the plural of nucleus, for those of you who were not forced to take Latin in high school, I was. Okay, eukaryotic cells have nuclei. These are membrane-bound sacs that keep the DNA separate from the cytoplasm. By keeping the DNA separate, you protect it. Eukaryotic cells also contain organelles, which are structures that carry out specific functions inside a cell. So this is a cartoon of a plant cell, and here's a cartoon of an animal cell. We're going to go through these now and talk about the different parts. The extra credit number 1 deals with the different parts of a cell. So if you want to, you can print that out and play along. The first region is the nucleus. We just talked about those. That keeps the DNA safe. So it's this whole region here. The nuclear membrane, also called the nuclear envelope, controls the passage of molecules between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So it really guards the DNA. Occasionally you'll hear the term nucleoplasm. Don't worry about it for the test, but this is the cytoplasm of the nucleus, so the goopy stuff in there. The nuclear envelope or nuclear membrane is the membrane of the nucleus. The outer membrane is attached to this organelle, which we'll learn about soon, called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Also in the nucleus, you'll find this region here, which is the nucleolus. This is where ribosomes are made. Here's a close-up of the nuclear envelope or nuclear membrane. There are pores in this membrane so things can go in and out. And these pores, they kind of look like little sewer drains. They actually have cages on top made out of protein that keep things out or keep things in. It's, it makes sure that things that are too big can't get in the nucleus. Now, in each one of your cells, you have 2 meters, that's 6.5 feet of DNA. Now, you can't just ball this up and throw it in the cell. If you did that, it would be like balling up your Christmas lights and then trying to bring them out next December and unwrapping them. Now, DNA is really important. You don't want it to get tangled. You don't want it to get messed up. So the DNA gets carefully wound up on proteins. The DNA plus the proteins it's wound up on is called chromatin. And this is a word you'll see many times in this course, chromatin. So individual units of chromatin are called chromosomes. Humans have 46 chromosomes, and one chromosome that's all spread out and being used looks like just a string. When it gets condensed, it starts to look like an X, and here it looks like more of a twisty X. That's kind of what you'd be familiar with from previous biology classes. So humans have 46 chromosomes. But that doesn't really mean we're complex or not. The number of chromosomes doesn't seem to have any bearing on how complicated the organism is. Oak trees only have 12 chromosomes, while king crabs have 208. I'd hate to be a king crab geneticist. Okay, to review. These are the different parts of the nucleus. Nuclear envelope, nucleoplasm, nucleolus, chromatin, and chromosome. Please use this with your studying. Next, we're going to talk about the endomembrane system. This is a series of interacting organelles between the nucleus and the plasma membrane. These organelles make lipids, enzymes, and proteins for secretion or to put in the membranes. They also destroy toxins and recycle wastes. So the nucleus is part of this, as well as the rough ER, the smooth ER, the Golgi body, and the vesicles. First, the endoplasmic reticulum. This, as we've said, is an extension of the nuclear membrane. It forms folds, tubes, and sacs, and it comes in 2 flavors, rough ER and smooth ER. The rough ER is covered with ribosomes. That's these little bumps here. The ribosomes make proteins, and they extrude the polypeptide or little protein chains into the inside of the ER. You can see that happening here. These little green ribbons are proteins. And the chains fold into proteins, so the finished protein inside the ER. The smooth ER is where proteins and enzymes made in the rough ER are sent. These enzymes help the smooth endoplasmic reticulum break down carbohydrates, fatty acids, drugs, and poisons. Then we have the vesicles. The vesicles kind of bud off from the ER, and these are small membrane-enclosed sacs. And they can bud from any membrane, not just the ER. Their purpose is to carry stuff around the cell. Here are some different kinds of vesicles. The first are the peroxisomes. These vesicles contain enzymes that digest fatty acids and amino acids and degrade alcohol. Next, you have the vacuoles. These are the vessels that store waste until it can be disposed of. Plants have a very large water-filled central vacuole that keeps them upright. It's actually like a little pressure bladder that keeps them up. Then we have lysosomes. These are vesicles that contain powerful digestive enzymes used to break down things in the cell. So here's a picture with some of those in it. This is a plant cell, and this big thing here is the central vacuole. And then this little guy over here is the lysosome. And you can also see the nucleus, the ER rough, the smooth ER, and where we're going next, the Golgi body. Whoa, okay, for that. One real-world example of a malfunction in the endomembrane system is Tay-Sachs disease. This is a horrible genetic disease that affects people of French Canadian and Ashkenazi Jewish descent. This is caused by a malfunction in an enzyme found in the lysosome. If you're born with this malfunctioning enzyme, your body can't break down a certain type of lipid used in the nervous system. So this lipid just builds up and builds up until the waste lipid causes you to die. This individual in the picture is Connor Hopf. He's 7.5 months old in the picture, and he died at 22 months. Best case scenario, people with this disorder only live to be around 3 years old.